Former President Barack Obama won his third Emmy, earning Outstanding Narrator for Netflix's Our Oceans. His narration of the Indian Ocean episode beat out stars like Tom Hanks and Idris Elba at the 2025 Creative Arts Emmys. And NFL Hall of Famer Randy Moss returned to ESPN's Sunday NFL Countdown after completing cancer treatment. Moss celebrated with colleagues, saying, quote, "I rang the bell, now I'm back with the family." Get BIN News now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Still got those annoying mosquitoes, ants, crickets, and creepy spiders? Get them out for good. Call legendary Dewey Pest and Termite Control. Family run since 1929. Get a free inspection and evaluation at DeweyPest.com. That's DeweyPest.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
It was a good first week of the regular season for both of LA's NFL teams. The Chargers beat Kansas City Friday night in Brazil. The Rams beat Houston 14-9 in their season opener at SoFi Stadium. The Rams defense kept Houston out of the end zone. All of Houston's points came on field goals. Rams quarterback Matthew Stafford was 21 of 29 for 245 yards and a touchdown. Stafford became the 10th quarterback in NFL history to reach 60,000 passing yards. The LA Sparks kept their WNBA playoff hopes alive with a 91-77 win over the Dallas Wings. The Sparks have 2 games remaining to pass the Seattle Storm for the 8th and final playoff spot. Seattle was a game and a half ahead of the Sparks. The Dodgers snapped a 5-game losing streak with a 5-2 win at Baltimore. The Dodgers are back home tonight against Colorado. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Are you ready to be a part of the conversation that will help shape our nation's future? Get ready to join us for the Left Coast Forum, Saturday, October 25th at LA Trade Tech, where progressive voices will come together to tackle the issues that matter most to working families across Los Angeles and beyond. From economic justice to climate action, from healthcare to housing, we're bringing together the brightest minds and most passionate advocates for real solutions and real change. With workshops, 2 major keynote addresses, and a closing reception with great music and good food. It's the Left Coast Forum, where your voice matters and your ideas take action. Saturday, October 25th at LA Trade Tech. Brought to you by KBLA Talk 1580 and the LA Progressive. The future won't wait, and neither should you. Mark your calendar now to be there and be heard. Stay tuned to KBLA Talk 1580 for more details.
I'm Tavis Smiley. Delighted to have you with us in this hour of our program. Been looking forward to this conversation with Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Trymaine Lee. In his new text, 1,000 Ways to Die, The True Cost of Violence on Black Life in America, Trymaine weaves together 3 strands: the long and bloody history of African Americans and guns, his work as a chronicler of gun violence, tallying the cost and riches generated by both legal and illegal gun industries, and his own life. Should be a rich dialogue for the rest of this hour with Trymaine Lee. Trymaine, good to have you on. How are you?
Tavis, thank you for having me. It's always good to be on. It's been quite some time, but it's always, it's good. Good to hear your voice.
It has been a while, and it's good to hear your voice, man. Delighted to have you on this program. I'm glad we got an hour to unpack it. There's a whole lot in this text. Before I get inside the book, 1,000 Ways to Die, given that we're talking about black life in America, the true cost of violence on black life in America, Donald Trump has opined time and time again that crime is out of control in this country. Never mind all the data which suggests the exact opposite. that crime is down in every one of these major cities that's on his hit list. I'm sitting in L.A. This program is syndicated across the country, so we're heard in all these other cities that's on Trump's hit list, literally, and I'm grateful for that. But I sit in L.A., and we're heard in Baltimore, we're heard in D.C., we're heard in New Orleans, we're heard in Chicago, all these places on his hit list. What say you about the way that Donald Trump is showing up or showing out with regard to these cities that happen to have African-American mayors? I see today he's walking back, the White House is attempting to walk back that threat to Chicago that he made over the weekend on his Truth Social platform. But just broadly speaking, talk to me about the way that Trump is maltreating black cities with black mayors, and then we'll get into black life in America more expressly, if that makes sense, sir.
Now, I'll tell you what, Tavis, when you hear the words, the president's own words, and I think he was referring to Baltimore. I wasn't sure if he was talking about Baltimore or Chicago, when he said, it doesn't matter, 5 years, 10 years, 2 years, these people were born to be criminals. And so beyond the politics and beyond who's presiding over these communities in terms of the mayors, he's talking about black people here, that there is some sort of genetic predisposition to violence and criminality. And I also can't miss the irony. Many, many, many years ago, right, the Compromise of 1877, when federal troops left the South, left the protection that black folks had, allowed the South to descend back into the violence and the white supremacist wave of bloodshed that we saw, and the ushering in of Jim Crow, and that sparking and the violence that was part of all of that, sparking the exodus for so many of us from the South into these northern cities, where we found racism with a different accent, and found red lines and slum conditions amidst the promise of better days. And now, all these years later, the president is threatening to use federal troops to not protect those people, not protect our brothers and sisters in Chicago and Baltimore, but to occupy them and oppress them. But that's our baseline here. And so I can't help but just see the clear parallels from then till now.
Yep. How do you read that parallel? I love the way you brilliantly and eloquently laid it out, but how do you read that parallel all these years later?
I think that black life in this country has, from the beginning, been at the whim of the federal government, right? And sometimes its most violent white supremacist impulses. So here we are again. We were hanging on by a thread before, and by the grace of the protection, we weren't slaughtered wholesale or pushed back into slavery. But I think it's the weaponization of the federal authorities, right? And the fact that, again, so much of our lives are still hanging in the balance.
Before I jump straight way into the text for the rest of the hour, unpack this title for me, 1,000 Ways to Die. Unpack that for me, Trymaine.
So in the very beginning, this book was about the true cost of gun violence. It changed dramatically, and we'll get into that. But as I started really zeroing in on what this book was really about, beyond just the bullet, whether it's blood clots or bullets, or whether it's the air that we breathe, whether it's violence and death at the hands of police, whether it's, again, cardiovascular disease, there are so many ways to die early and often violently to be black in this country. And so it's not just the violence of the trigger, it's the systemic violence that happens long before, almost requisite, happens long before a trigger is ever pulled. And so it's the many ways in which violence in this country has shaped our experience here.
Since you went there, I'm going to follow you, as I will for the rest of this hour. You already teased us with the fact that the original thesis for this book changed along the way. Tell me about that departure.
So it begins many, many years ago. In 2003, I was an intern at the Philadelphia Daily News. And despite me wanting to be kind of a features writer and a Richard Wright type writer, I found myself on the police and crime beat. And so I ended up at crime scenes where I would see young brothers, especially, that looked just like me at that time, early 20s. We wear the same sneakers, our hair's cut the same. I would see a reflection of myself time and again. And one of these young men who actually survived the shooting, he was shot and paralyzed. His name was Kevin Johnson, just a few years younger than me. And they were trying to rob him for his Allen Iverson jersey. And instead, the paramedics had to cut the jersey off his back after he was shot. And so I ended up making my way into his hospital room. And what I found wasn't a young man spiritually broken, physically broken, yes, wounded, yes, but emotionally, this kid was so buoyant. He had this big smile on his face, and he had dreams of walking again and playing basketball. And he was just this ball of energy. And I looked up across his bed, and I found his mother staring back at me with tears in her eyes, because we both recognized the truth that he would never walk again. And even beyond the physical pain that her boy was experiencing and the stolen dreams, she started talking about the actual cost just to get him home. She talked about needing a new vehicle for his wheelchair, needing a special wheelchair, needing to get a ramp onto their row home in North Philly, talking about widening the doors so that all his wheelchair and apparatus could get through, new outlets to power his breathing machine to keep him alive. It was all this like actual dollar costs. And so those early seeds, I said, you know what? I certainly care, and I want people to understand the broad spectrum of costs we pay. But maybe they don't care about the Kevin Johnsons of the world, but maybe they care that every time a bullet hits bone, we're all paying a price, a literal price, because often gunshot victims don't often have private insurance, right? They're on public insurance. And so when you're talking about, in Kevin's case, being a quadriplegic, the surgeries alone from the very beginning were millions of dollars. And that's not even taking into account the medication and the machines and all that stuff. And so I was setting out to tell that story for many years and couldn't get it done until I finally got a book proposal called $1 Million Bullets, The True Cost of Violence on Black Life in America, where I was going to do just that. So that was in 2015, after all those years. I was writing the book. I'm reporting on the book. I'm all across the country. I'm also still reporting on, Trayvon Martin was 2012. Then it was Mike Brown in 2014, Freddie Gray, Eric Garner, on. So I'm still steeped in it. And telling these stories, I had a heart attack.
Hold that thought. Hold the thought. He had a heart attack. Telling all these stories, he himself has a heart attack. We'll pick it up right there when we come forward. I can't wait to hear the rest of it. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
From California to the Carolinas, everybody's listening to Tavis. More when we come forward.
Attorney advertising. Prior results do not guarantee future outcomes.
Founded in Los Angeles in 1986, litigation powerhouse Quinn Emanuel has deep roots in the Los Angeles community. Since 2007, we have litigated some of the largest fires on the West Coast. We are proud to be the only AmLaw 100 firm in the country to represent wildfire victims, giving affected individuals, families, and businesses the same focus and individualized attention we devote to our Fortune 500 clients. BTI Consulting has repeatedly recognized Quinn Emanuel as among the 4 law firms in-house counsel least likely to oppose in any litigation, and we are often deemed the most feared. And after securing over $80 billion for our clients in various matters firm-wide, we understand why. If you have been affected by the recent wildfires in Altadena and the Palisades and would like to discuss your situation further, please contact wildfire support at QuinnEmanuel.com or call us at 213-443-3050. Quinn Emanuel is proud to sponsor Conversation Live Altadena Rising with James Farr on KBLA Talk 1580.
Attorney advertising. Prior results do not guarantee future outcomes.
Make a move into a home of your own. With City National Bank's Ladder Up Home Loan Grant, you could receive up to $20,000 that you never need to pay back. Use it toward your down payment, save on closing costs, or to buy down your mortgage rate. Find out more at cnb.com/ladderuphome. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Property must be in a qualifying market in California, New York, or New Jersey. Additional terms and conditions apply. Not all applicants will qualify. Terms are subject to change without notice. City National Bank is an equal housing lender. Member FDIC. NMLS number 536994.
My mom has decided to learn to paint, and she's good.
My dad's now into creative cuisine, and I've already put on 6 pounds.
Learning new things comes with age.
My mom, she started forgetting my name and what we're talking about.
Forgetting well-known things doesn't. Memory loss may be a sign of Alzheimer's disease. Early detection gives you and your loved one time to plan for the future. Learn the warning signs of Alzheimer's at 10signs.org. Brought to you by the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
You're still glowing, flirting, grooving. You've still got it. But your immune system weakens as you age, making it harder to fight flu, pneumococcal pneumonia, RSV, and COVID-19. Vaccines are a key part of any health routine and help strengthen your immune response. Ask your doctor or pharmacist which vaccines you need. Schedule in minutes at vaxassist.com. Sponsored by Pfizer.
There's nothing like when you get that part from eBay and it just fits. Yeah, the first time. So you can do less of this and get right back to more of this. At eBay, you'll find all the parts you need Guaranteed to fit at prices you'll love. Sounds good, doesn't it? eBay. Things people love. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
Helping to make you the most knowledgeable person in your circle of friends. This is Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Trymaine Lee. We'll just call it the Trymaine and Tavis show for the next 45 minutes. Trymaine's new book is called 1,000 Ways to Die, The True Cost of Violence on Black Life in America. We talk in this country a great deal, perhaps not enough. And I recognize that talk is cheap, but we do tend to find ourselves in conversations about gun violence in this country. What makes this book uniquely different, we're going to work our way into it here in a moment, is that it is, to my mind, a poignant chronicle of the systems that fuel gun violence in the U.S. It's a different conversation than just talking about gun violence. But what about the systems that fuel the kind of gun violence that we see in this country, in all the ways, the 1,000 ways that there are for black people to die, talking again about the true cost of violence on black life in America. That's the book. We're working our way inside of it, but I'd ask, in case you've just tuned in, I'd ask Trymaine to unpack a point he'd made earlier about how the book started out taking him in one direction, and then there was a sort of pivot, if you will. He's telling us the story about the pivot, and then he gets to the point of writing about all these murders of black men and black women every single day, oftentimes at the hand of cops. And in the process of all that, Trymaine Lee has a heart attack. Pick up the story from there, Trymaine.
That's right, Tavis. I'll never forget, it was July 13th, 2017. 2 years into writing this book, which was then called $1 Million Bullets, and I was chronicling the many costs that we pay as black folks, but also as a society, when I had this heart attack. And it's the kind of heart attack that happens so often and so violently. It has its own nickname. It's called a widowmaker. Mm-hmm. And so more than 90% of my left anterior descending artery, the big artery feeding my heart, was clogged with a blood clot. And in that moment, my cardiologist, said that not only was I extraordinarily lucky, but he also noted that I didn't have many of the other markers. I didn't have high blood pressure, no family history of cardiovascular disease, and no real warning signs. I was a former athlete, played football in high school and a little bit in college, and I just didn't have the markers. And so as I was healing physically and also emotionally and mentally, with the reality that I almost died, my then 6-year-old daughter was asking me, how, Daddy, and why, like what happened? And in order to be 100% honest with her, I had to be honest and vulnerable with myself and dig deeper than I'd ever planned on doing. And I realized that everything that I was carrying, an entire decade of a journalism career built trying to humanize us and tell our stories, meant I was on the front lines of so many battles across this country, not just in the rebellion of, in the post-Ferguson days, but also the everyday battles happening in communities, looking into mothers' eyes who've lost their children, arriving at crime scenes and finding young dead men who look just like me and my brothers and my cousins, right? And I never fully processed it. As a young journalist, what I did is I worked harder, I hung out, I drank, I was single, so I was, chasing after the young ladies. I was doing everything but truly engaging with what was bearing down on me. And then I had to go back even further and engage with how my own family over the generations has experienced gun violence. And so I always knew growing up that my grandfather, Horace Worthington, was shot and killed in 1976. My grandparents had an apartment in Camden, New Jersey, and they were going to rent it to this guy. And so he shows up, leaves a deposit, and then disappears for several weeks. And so when he comes back, he's asking my grandfather for his money back. And my grandfather was saying, it's non-refundable. I'll basically see you in court. And that's that. Mm-hmm. He came back and shot and killed my grandfather. And so my grandparents had 8 kids, including my mother. And so it's this big, well-known family in the community. He's taken. And I grew up with that gap, that absence. But I had to go back even further and learn stories that I had never heard growing up, that my family kept quiet, but undoubtedly shaped them and shaped us. Going back to 1922 in rural Jim Crow, Georgia, my great-grandparents were tenant farmers. And so they worked land that would never be their own, but they worked it. And they had a couple children, including my grandmother who was a baby, and a 12-year-old named Cornelius. And around settlement time, towards the end of the year, they sent Cornelius off to do run some errands, and he was shot and killed in a neighboring sundown town called Fitzgerald, Georgia, which is a well-known place because it happens to be one of the few cities in this country that after the Civil War, Confederate troops and Union troops, veterans, I should say, Confederate veterans and Union veterans came together and created a town where there was such kinship that they named the streets alternating. Some were named after Confederates, some named after Union soldiers. So it's this, they came together. But I always thought that sundown towns were like colloquial, like it's a bad place that Black folks just don't go, right? The threat of violence is there, but it's colloquial. But here, the newspaper has documented how the white men of the town came together to take a vote, not as part of any legislative body, but just voted to not allow Negroes to work or vote or be in town after a certain time. And so this is where my great uncle Cornelius was killed. And in my reporting, I discovered his death certificate. And it says, age 12, cause of death, gunshot wounds. And it stopped me in my tracks. But not long after that, after he was killed, my family joined, as so many of our families, the Great Migration North. And they landed in Philly first, and then South Jersey, where I grew up. And decades later, in 1951, another of my grandmother's brothers, a teenager, McClinton, was shot and killed by a state trooper. And I tell you, Tavis, when I uncovered the newspaper article, the headline reads like something out of 2012 or 2014. It says, "Trooper's gun kills youth," right? As if the gun popped up by itself and shot and killed this young man under these very concerning circumstances, I'll say. And so now already my great-grandparents have lost, two boys, two teenagers, one in the South, in deep rural South, and one in the so-called promised land of the North. And then 2 decades later, my grandfather is killed. And then in 1996, my stepbrother is shot in the back of the head by a girl in Camden. In the early 2000s, a cousin was also murdered in Atlantic City, and his brother was involved later in a botched robbery turned murder. So now he's spending his life in prison. And so me as a journalist who's always been very intentional about telling our stories, right, the way we live and die and everything in between, I'm carrying all of this. And if it's happening, as we know, to me, I'm just a proxy, right? Our family story is not much different than yours or your listeners, folks who have experienced the breadth of the American experience, which also comes with great violence. And so all of that, born from that blood clot, and comparing the blood clot and the bullet, and what both have the power to like twist and bend the life. And from my daughter's question of Daddy, why? And this is why, and this is how.
And thus we end up with this book called 1,000 Ways to Die, The True Cost of Violence on Black Life in America. I did not want to interrupt Trymaine, but there are a few thoughts that were running through my head as he was talking. The first is how grateful I am that that Widowmaker heart attack didn't take him out. When you were talking about that, I got a little teary-eyed here in the studio, in part because I just talked to one of my brothers yesterday, in fact. He had that same Widowmaker heart attack, and thankfully he survived as well. And in my family, we're all excited. He turns 50 on Wednesday, Lord willing. If he makes it to Wednesday, not unlike Trymaine Lee, he's still living, and we call him Scooter. Scooter, my baby brother, will be 50 on Wednesday. I celebrate his still being here, and I celebrate Trymaine Lee still being here to share with us this particular story. So those thoughts were kind of running through my head. The second thought that ran through my head was, again, to your point, that every one of us, if we did the research, we're not Pulitzer Prize-winning writers like Trymaine Lee is, but if we were and had the capacity, the ability, the stamina, frankly, to do the kind of research that he has done, I suspect we'd find these similar kinds of stories, as Trymaine just pointed out, in all of our families. I ain't got to go back that far. I have been fortunate and blessed to forge a career here in L.A., that's made me known in this country and around the world. I am grateful to God for all the success that I've had after Indiana University, moving to L.A. and making this place my home 30-plus years ago. But I happen to live in a city where I've made my name, where my uncle, my mother's brother, was shot and killed. So she had her only brother is shot and killed here in L.A. A family friend has to ship his body back to Mississippi, where I am from. So my uncle is murdered in this city, and fortunately, I've had a chance to, put my stake in the ground in L.A. And be blessed to do the work and witness that I've engaged all these years. But I ain't got to go back that far to see again in my own family. My uncle was murdered in the same city that I now call home. Why do I raise that? Because I'm fascinated to know how it is, and of course this takes us inside the book, how it is that you process learning about all of that violence in your own family, Trymaine.
Yeah. I think it's been a work in progress. And so it's one thing to intellectually understand it and connect us to this broader history. So we've always been prepared, especially those of us who were raised with an honest view of this country and the violence we've experienced. It's another when you're writing about your own family, right? You don't have the privilege to be arm's length as a journalist. And there have been a couple times in writing this book, and the first time I'll never forget. And I write about this in the book, and so I'll let people read it. But there was a moment where I was reflecting on my grandfather's murder.
Oh, yeah.
And for the first time, I cried like a baby. And when I say it now, I get teary-eyed because of what I didn't get a chance to have. You know what I'm saying? I didn't get a chance to wrap my arms around my grandfather. I didn't get to learn the lessons. I didn't learn. I love fishing to this day. But when I talk to some of my brother and them who are a little older than me, who got to go fishing with my grandfather, and I think about how, for so many reasons, I've borne the weight of it all this by myself. I'm like, I don't ask anybody for anything. I just feel like I got to do it myself, and I can't help but imagine I didn't have that man to turn to. You know what I'm saying? And so, and thinking about my grandmother, who was the sweetest, most Jesus-loving woman you would ever meet. Beautiful woman. And when I say she loved church and loved God, I'm serious. But I didn't know about how she struggled after my grandfather's murder with alcoholism, with abusive relationships, with all these eight young people. At this time, my mother would have been the youngest at like 20 something. Yeah. But how she manages. And so I'm drawn so close to that hurt and pain, but also the courage and faith it takes to step up in light of all that and still smile and still hug and still have a faith beyond measure. Yeah. That's the experience I've had. So it's been a combination of like feeling closer to the pain and anguish than I ever have before, but also being so proud of my people and our people for pushing through against seemingly insurmountable odds.
Yeah. So I've got 2 minutes here now. Let me ask a question that I think we can answer in 2 minutes, and we got the rest of the hour when we come forward to, again, go a little deeper inside the text. By the way, the book is called 1,000 Ways to Die, The True Cost of Violence on Black Life in America, written by the winner of the Pulitzer Prize, Trymaine Lee, who I'm honored to have on this program right about now. So just top line for me, the systems that you interrogate in this book that fuel the kind of gun violence in this country that you've been opining about.
In the earliest days, and in the book, we go back to the guns for slave cycle. And I don't think we can disentangle ourselves from the very earliest seeds and the psychic residue that's still on us from that our bodies were traded for guns. And at certain points, guns were the most traded commodity for enslaved Africans. And that European powers were applying regional African powers with guns to create more war and instability, to create more enslaved people. And so we're pushed out of Mother Africa with the muzzle of a gun at our back and arriving at the hell of the Western world with more white men with more guns. And those earliest, police departments, the slave patrols, and then fighting a war for freedom, and then emerging on the other side of that with those federal troops we mentioned earlier that were protecting us, leaving, and now the reign of white supremacist terror. And every step along the way, it was the gun that was binding the system together. And then systematizing our, second-class half citizenship into housing laws. The housing laws were everything. The idea that we were cloistered in these segregated communities with red lines drawn around them. And then another leap, and this goes to the tentacles of the system, is that people haven't interrogated fully that, the modern gun rights movement as we know it, the one that is fueling the gun machine in this country, was really in response to Brown v. Board of Education in 1954. There's a direct correlation between their fear of losing America to us. Yeah. The encroachment of their white power helped fuel this modern gun rights movement, which we know is part of the system that's pumping all of these guns into our communities.
That's enough to take me the rest of this hour, and I look forward to it when we come forward with Trymaine Lee talking about the gun binding the system together. He says it has not been interrogated fully. We'll interrogate it as fully as we can. This notion of Brown v. Board that he just raises now, and that notion of guns for slaves. Did you know that? Did you know that? The book is called 1,000 Ways to Die, The True Cost of Violence on Black Life in America. More with Trymaine Lee when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
This is getting good. Yeah, man. Tavis Smiley continues when we come forward.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. Thousands protested in downtown Chicago Saturday against President Trump's threat to deploy federal troops.
Every single immigrant has every single right to have their families stay together.
Trump renamed the Pentagon the Department of War and posted Chicago is about to find out why on social media. Local leaders called the move dangerous. Former President Barack Obama won his third Emmy, earning Outstanding Narrator for Netflix's Our Oceans. His narration of the Indian Ocean episode beat out stars like Tom Hanks and Idris Elba at the 2025 Creative Arts Emmys. And NFL Hall of Famer Randy Moss returned to ESPN's Sunday NFL Countdown after completing cancer treatment. Moss celebrated with colleagues, saying, quote, "I rang the bell, now I'm back with the family." Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Still got those annoying mosquitoes, ants, crickets, and creepy spiders? Get them out for good. Call legendary Dewey Pest and Termite Control. Family run since 1929. Get a free inspection and evaluation at DeweyPest.com. That's DeweyPest.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
It was a good first week of the regular season for both of LA's NFL teams. The Chargers beat Kansas City Friday night in Brazil. The Rams beat Houston 14-9 in their season opener at SoFi Stadium. The Rams defense kept Houston out of the end zone. All of Houston's points came on field goals. Rams quarterback Matthew Stafford was 21 of 29 for 245 yards and a touchdown. Stafford became the 10th quarterback in NFL history to reach 60,000 passing yards. The LA Sparks kept their WNBA playoff hopes alive with a 91-77 win over the Dallas Wings. The Sparks have 2 games remaining to pass the Seattle Storm for the 8th and final playoff spot. Seattle was a game and a half ahead of the Sparks. The Dodgers snapped a 5-game losing streak with a 5-2 win at Baltimore. The Dodgers are back home tonight against Colorado. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
As a mom, comforting my family is what I do best. Vicks Vapor Stick provides soothing, non-medicated Vicks Vapors in an easy-to-apply stick, and it dries fast, so there's no mess. I use it to comfort myself and my family.
Thanks, Mom.
Vicks Vapo Stick, soothing comfort for the whole family. And try Vicks Vapo Shower Max for steamy Vicks Vapors when you need more comfort for yourself. Use as directed.
Hey, listen to this. All I needed was a new starter. Got a great deal on eBay. Did it myself.
Yeah, that's cool. But how about the soft purr of an upgraded exhaust when it fits just right?
For me, it's the little things, like these new windshield wipers from eBay I installed.
From small fixes to big upgrades, eBay has all the parts you need at prices you'll love. Guaranteed to fit every time. eBay. Things people love. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
This season, San Diego is playing at home, and you are on the roster. Don't miss the Padres, Wave FC, San Diego FC, and the Blue Angels at the Miramar Air Show. Plan your trip now at sandiego.org/awesome all year. Funded in part with City of San Diego Tourism Marketing District Assessment Funds.
This is the story of the one. As a safety manager at a manufacturing plant, he does everything he can to keep his coworkers safe. From finding ways to reduce risks to keeping safety supplies in stock. And for that, he relies on Grainger, Grainger offers a broad range of quality products and next-day delivery, so he can always play it safe. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
This is Joe Cordell of Cordell & Cordell. Cordell & Cordell is the largest family law firm in the country, with over 35 years of helping clients navigate divorce. That does give us certain advantages, for example, in experience and resources. But being big doesn't mean less personal or less local. Our attorneys live and work in your community, and as neighbors, they understand the challenges your families face. If you're a guy facing divorce, remember, Cordell & Cordell, a partner you can count on.
1455 Frazee, San Diego. CordellCordell.com.
Paid for by government.com. Did you know the United States Mint has issued a new Morgan silver dollar coin in proof condition for the first time? Not only that, they are also minted in 99.9% pure silver for the first time ever in history. Coin experts are calling this an amazing opportunity for anyone that knows the enduring popularity of Morgans. But you must hurry. Only 400,000 of these legal tender silver dollars were issued. These first ever Morgan silver dollars are brand new with stunning mirror-like finish, minted by the iconic San Francisco Mint. Call now and you're guaranteed a new first ever 99.9% pure silver proof Morgan dollar. To learn more, call 1-800-973-9717. If you order now, you will receive a free coin collector bonus pack, a $25 value, free with every order. Call 1-800-973-9717 now to secure your new Morgan silver dollars before they are gone. That's 1-800-973-9717.
Made fresh daily in Leimert Park, Los Angeles, California. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
You're listening to Trymaine Lee on Tavis Smiley, author of the new book, 1,000 Ways to Die, The True Cost of Violence on Black Life in America. Trymaine is winner of the Pulitzer Prize. I mentioned that a couple of times because that's high cotton, as we say around here, to be the winner of a Pulitzer. What I did not tell you is what he won the Pulitzer for. He won it for breaking news reporting 20 years ago at the Times-Picayune, writing about, wait for it, Hurricane Katrina. We have been having a series of conversations, Trymaine, on this program 20 years after Katrina. We just literally today had our final conversation in a series of dialogues I've been having about Katrina 20 years later. Why do I raise that? Glad you asked, because Trymaine just happens to be not just the author of this book, but also the exec producer and host of a new series called Hope in High Water, A People's Recovery 20 years after Hurricane Katrina. Before I get back to the text, say a word about the series, Trymaine Lee.
Thank you very much, brother, for that. Katrina in New Orleans played such an important role in my personal and professional life. You know, I like to say I got down to New Orleans, and it was just 4 months before Katrina as a reporter, and then I emerged as a journalist. I was really good at talking to folks and taking their stories and painting the picture. But for the first time in my early reporting career, I started to understand the systems around us. And so having experienced Katrina and the great loss of life, the great pain heaped on that beautiful city, and folks who, you know, need much less pain and fewer burdens got heaped upon with so much more. But to come back 20 years later and not focus on the destruction and not focus on all the lapses, but to focus on how community itself stepped up in different ways to heal itself when politicians failed, when policy failed, when lawmakers didn't keep their promises, right? They were able to heal in ways that I think, deserve their flowers. And talking to folks to address food insecurity, which was exacerbated by the storm. They're literally teaching young people how to grow fresh food, to feed themselves. There are people who are engaging with what it means to bring healthy life into this city through maternal health care, right? And maternal mental health care when they lose young people. To people who are in the streets trying to create whatever barriers they can between young people and gun violence. And so to go back, and also folks who are fighting for the literal ground beneath their feet along the Gulf Coast, you know, trying to push back the encroachment of big industry, but also coastal erosion, and finding ways to protect land that Black folks have been working and living on and building institutions on since the fall of slavery. And so Hope in High Water is just that. It's revealing, even despite the high water, despite everything this community has been through, folks are stepping up to save themselves when no one else can. Because we know, nobody loves us but us.
That's right.
And I want to show that folks are stepping up.
Yep. I love the way that so many brilliant filmmakers have train their lens on New Orleans 20 years later. We featured a number of these artists in conversations about their work on this program. There is, of course, the series that Ryan Coogler has done. That's on Nat Geo, as I recall. Spike Lee was on this program just 3 days ago. Spike's piece is on Netflix, his series. And Trymaine Lee has done a pretty amazing piece of work that's streaming right now on Peacock. So Hope in High Water, A People's Recovery 20 Years After Hurricane Katrina, is streaming right now on Peacock, and I recommend highly that you check it out. I love all these pieces. They all approach it from different perspectives, but why not have multiple pieces to remind us that we can never forget what happened to our people 20 years ago in New Orleans. Again, it's called Hope in High Water, A People's Recovery 20 Years After Hurricane Katrina, streaming right now on Peacock, brought to us by the exec producer and host and author of this book, 1,000 Ways to Die, our guest right now, Trymaine Lee. Speaking of the book, let me circle back to the book now. You got a lot going on, Trymaine. You got product, man. You got product, and I'm trying to push all of it. Let me circle back. Let me circle back to this powerful polemic, though. 1,000 Ways to Die: The True Cost of Violence on Black Life in America. You were saying to us moments ago that the gun. I think I can ask if I ask this broad question. I think we can work our way into Brown v. Board, work our way into guns for sales even prior to Brown v. Board. But the broad question you've already teed up for me quite nicely. Thank you, sir. Is how the gun is binding, has been for centuries now, binding all of these systems together. Take it as you will.
The gun, and I like to describe it as a cudgel to beat us back into place if we ever dare to live too fully or too freely, right? And I think that captures the ethos of the violence that has bound us to a partial citizenship from the very beginning, whether it's through the police state, whether it's through white supremacist violence, all those things keeping us cloistered in our place, in places where we think about the broad systems all overlapping here. If you go to communities that experience the highest violence, they're also the hungriest communities. They're the communities with the least funded schools. The education is often subpar. They often are filled with folks who also are drinking water from pipes laden with lead, century-old infrastructure. We were talking about New Orleans a minute ago, and you think about how the lower Ninth Ward, this proud community where so much of what we love about New Orleans comes from, the food and the jazz, they were pushed there because it was the lowest lying areas where white folks got to live high off the natural levees, right? And so there's no accident that gun violence is always the manifestation of all the other forms of violence that we experience. And so we've gotten to the point now where we're in a crisis where our young people are disconnected, unmoored. And as Frantz Fanon talked about, the colonized people won't dare strike out at the colonizer, right? But they will strike out at themselves and their neighbors, turn that violence inward. And so that's what we're seeing here. So we have the state, we have the history, the deep history of how guns were literally used to get us here, right? And to keep us controlled once we got here, to our own selves, with this access to these guns, which again, they don't melt, they don't rot. They're here with us for good. And so millions of these guns are being pumped from these factories, these gun factories all across the country. And what's helping to sell these guns goes back to some of that fear in response to Brown v. Board. It's us they're scared of, or at least that's us they're pretending to be scared of so they can weaponize that fear.
Yeah. I referenced earlier, and I want to just make sure we get to it before I lose you at the top of the hour. We got more time here for more conversation, thankfully. But since you're on that point now, I referenced that what you've done in this text is really to help tally the cost and the riches generated by both legal and illegal gun industries. Go into that, if you will, please.
The gun industry is one of the few industries in this country that has been able to run almost completely unchecked, right? So there's one thing to have the Swiss cheese nature of gun laws we have in this country, where states determine who can carry them, how many guns they can get, all that good stuff. But there are basically very few checks on the industry itself. They are making billions of dollars in profit, in revenue from selling guns. In the communities in which these guns are made, it's like any other factory. And so we get into some of this, and I get into some of this in the book, where you have gun towns where people are actually putting food on their tables and sending kids to college, where a universe away in the south side of Chicago, right, or in Baltimore, in these places that the president is now about to take aim at, we see the impact of these guns, with tremendous bloodshed. It's a tragic cycle.
Yep. Well, how do you read? Well, let me just ask this question now. I'm looking at my clock. Let me ask the question now. We'll get Trymaine Lee's response to it when we come forward here. He mentioned the president just now, and what's beyond troubling for me is that Donald Trump is really, really good at impugning the people, but I've yet to hear him indict the gun industry. He will impugn the people, but he won't indict the industry. It's that old notion that guns don't kill people. People kill people with guns. So he'll indict the people, but he won't impugn the industry. Why not? No naivete there, but I want to get Trymaine's response to that when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
Generous listening. Charitable listening. It's why everybody wants to talk to Tavis. The conversation continues when we come forward.
With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Dr. Nicolai Corte. Let's preserve black land stories before they're lost forever. I want to personally invite you to be a part of something historic. As journalist in residence for the Black Land Lost Narrative Archive Project, I've joined forces with powerhouse attorney and social justice champion George Fothery, the man who helped make history by delivering justice to the Bruce family in Manhattan Beach, securing the first known return of land unjustly taken from black owners by a local government. That victory was monumental, but it was just the beginning. For generations, black families have acquired land through grit, faith, and determination, only to lose it through violence, legal loopholes, forced sales, and systematic racism. What's been taken goes far beyond dirt and deeds. It's the erasure of wealth, identity, and legacy. That's why we've launched the Black Land Lost Narrative Archive Project, a national effort to collect, protect, and preserve the stories of black land lost before they're buried, forgotten, or erased altogether. Because there's power in telling black stories, there is resistance in remembering, and there's justice in being seen and heard. This is where you come in. We're inviting you to be a part of this historic black narrative archive. If you or someone you know has experienced land loss, displacement, or forced property sales, your story deserves to be heard and remembered. Your story belongs in this archive. Your truth matters not just to your family, but to our collective future. Visit blacklandlost.org today. Fill out our simple intake form and add your voice to the National Archive of Remembrance, Resilience, and Reckoning. Let's make these stories live on, not in whispers, but on the record. With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Dr. Nicolai Corte, and as always, we welcome your feedback.
We asked seniors how to prevent Medicare scams.
My best advice, if you get a phone call, do not talk to the person. These people are well trained. Don't talk to them.
They don't know me. They're just trying to scam me.
Don't be fooled. Hang up.
Just hang up.
Never give out your Medicare number.
They're going to get your number to put in a false claim.
If I get a call from someone, I don't pick up the phone. And should I pick up the phone and they ask for information, then I hang up.
How do you detect Medicare fraud?
Just like I check my credit card statements, I check my Medicare statements monthly.
Scammers can get a hold of your number, order medical devices through your account, and you're not even going to know about it if you don't look at your statement.
Check your statement every month.
If you get your statement and you see something that you know you did not have done, you report it.
Call your Senior Medicare Patrol.
To report Medicare fraud, call the Senior Medicare Patrol at 855-613-7080.
Let's get back to more of this rich dialogue with Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Trymaine Lee, author of the new book, 1,000 Ways to Die, The True Cost of Violence on Black Life in America, winner of the Pulitzer Prize. So you put your finger on something a moment ago, Trymaine, and I want to just give you a chance to sound off on this, and no naivete here. But again, since we raised the name of the president, he is good about impugning the people of L.A., the people of D.C., the people of Baltimore, the people of New Orleans, the people of Chicago, good about impugning the people, but he won't indict the industry, the gun industry, the systems that fuel this gun violence in America. Why not?
Well, I think first and foremost, his anti-blackness is so it's not just thinly veiled; it's on full display. But to this exact point, when we saw earlier in the week, we saw the military take this strike on this alleged Venezuelan gunboat because he recognizes the source and the means to get those drugs over to this country and recognize that as a threat. There is no surprise where the guns in America come from, the illegal guns, because almost every gun in this country starts off legally. They're pumped out of these factories. They're part of the wholesale market, then the retail market, then the secondary market, and in some states, the back of the trunk market, right, at the gun shows. And so there's no surprise that you have guns streaming from these, states with the super loose gun laws into communities where gun laws are stricter. But I think undergirding all of this is the sense of anti-Blackness. And whether it's a President Trump or any other number of politicians who see there's been a kind of conditioning to accept some level of Black hunger and Black pain and Black disenfranchisement. And it's just the way it is. And so we can point to those places and use them as poster children. Lest we forget, certainly Black folks are overrepresented when it comes to homicide numbers. We account for about half the homicides, but the other half are white, right? The other half are white. So gun death isn't just a Black problem. It's exacerbated and amplified, and through the lens of race, it's certainly extreme. But again, it's a white problem also, because half deaths are white folks.
Yeah.
But again, I think the anti-Blackness undergirds all of this.
So why should I believe then, as you call for in this book, that we can have a safer, freer, more truthful America when it comes to the cost of violence on Black life in America? Why should I believe that any of that is possible if they don't care about the killing of white babies all the way back to Sandy Hook?
The only thing that gives me great faith, because America, until forced to do otherwise, won't do otherwise. I think it's upon us, though, to recognize the pain that we've experienced and call it trauma and start to work to disentangle ourselves from it and understand that in the bigger picture, what I hope my broad spectrum of work says is ain't nothing wrong with us. If you want to understand what's wrong with us, let's look at the machinery all around us that underpins our feet and our toes and our hopes and our dreams. And so I think our sense of freedom can come from us understanding exactly what the actual threats are, and start to see also that gun violence as we experience it is also a reflection and response to white supremacy. We have to understand it that way when you look at the systems that have bound us in the way they have. And I think that gives me great hope. I'm not sure that America will ever recognize the true danger of letting a gun industry run amok, because it's so easy just to point and use, our Black pain as a scapegoat.
Trymaine Lee says it so poignantly and so clearly. I love that phrase, that sentence, that there ain't nothing wrong with us. There ain't nothing wrong with us. And yet we are living in a moment where the previously mentioned Donald Trump is trying to make us the boogeyman. That's what this is all about. It's about stoking fear and blaming everything wrong with America on Black people. And if you can make white folk afraid of us in a moment such as this, then is there anything that's not possible when you make Black folk the boogeymen and women, as it were? But Trymaine says very clearly, there ain't nothing wrong with us, but that's not the message that Donald Trump is selling. We'll close on that note when we come forward in our remaining moments with Trymaine Lee on Tavis Smiley.
Why does Tavis say, when we come forward? Because he's not going back. And you don't have to go back either. Forward ever, backward never. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. If you need help getting your resume in order, finding job training, or landing a job, we've got 3 great options for you. First, the City of Los Angeles has worksource centers across the area offering free job support. The California Workforce Development Board can help you with everything from GED prep to vocational training at no cost to you. On the federal level, the Department of Labor's American Job Centers offer a full range of services for job seekers and businesses alike. Visit careeronestop.org, or for more info, just call California's Help Center or visit cwdb.ca.gov or call 916-657-1440. For the City of Los Angeles programs, go to ewd.lacity.gov or call 213-744-7300. All these services are free to help you get your next job. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
The following is a paid advertisement by Family Vacation Getaways with the purpose of soliciting sales of vacation ownership. For complete details, please visit fvgradio.com. If you want a 100% complimentary stay at a luxury resort in Cancun, airfare not included, then Family Vacation Getaways is your ticket to paradise. See website for complete details. We're giving away 5 days and 4 nights to the first 50 callers who can name an animal that lays eggs and is not a bird. An animal that lays eggs and is not a bird. Do you know it? Call now, 800-868-6431, 800-868-6431. You're also eligible for an exciting bonus vacation to Orlando, Florida for just $498. And don't worry about anything ruining your plans. We can extend your travel up to 18 months. Name an animal that lays eggs and is not a bird, and get a complimentary Cancun resort stay and an optional bonus vacation to Orlando for just $498. What are you waiting for? Call 800-868-6431, 800-868-6431, and give us your answer. The proceeding is not a contest and is a paid advertisement by Family Vacation Getaways, and not sponsored by this program or its affiliates.
Sometimes he fails at fitting in, but we're okay with that. You're inside the Tavis Smiley Show.
You are indeed, for the next 3 or 4 minutes, which is all I have left in this conversation that I have enjoyed immensely, learned a lot, which is always the case when you talk to Trymaine Lee, the Pulitzer Prize-winning author of the new book, 1,000 Ways to Die, The True Cost of Violence on Black Life in America, also the exec producer behind the new project, Hope in High Water, A People's Recovery, 20 years after Hurricane Katrina, streaming right now on Peacock. Let me close our conversation, or at least start to draw this to a close, Trymaine, in the few minutes I have left, with the notion I raised, you raised a moment ago. I should say that there ain't nothing wrong with us. I accept that. There ain't nothing wrong with us. You said it so clearly and so concisely, and yet, as you well know, that ain't the message that Donald Trump is trying to sell America right now about black folk in America.
Well, it's the baseline and default position for folks like Donald Trump and those who came before him. As long as you can point to the Negro, then you don't have to do anything. You don't have to do much more, and you lower the expectations for everyone in our orbit, including poor white people. Right? So it's nothing new, but it is a shame because I think so many black people have also brought into the notion, and I think this is where the history matters, and this is where our storytelling matters and our narratives matter, to make sure that our people also understand the truth about how we live and die and experience America. Because otherwise, mind you, most of us are getting the same education and we're hearing the same tales, right? We're going to get those same textbooks with the parts about slavery redacted, or that we were some migrant workforce, right? We're all getting that. And so I think it's dangerous. It's the default position, but it's dangerous, not just for America writ large, but for us. So we need to make sure we're having the counter narrative about the truth.
Somebody said of this book, 1,000 Ways to Die, that it is both a memorial and a mirror. If those two M words make sense to you, say a final word about the memorial piece and the mirror piece, Trymaine Lee.
Our people have paid so much for being in this place, in this country, and reaching for the fullness of our citizenship. And I want to pay homage to those folks, including those in my own family who have lost their lives to gun violence too soon. And for my family members who, in proximity to that death, have had to carry the burden. And so I think it's a memorial for all of those folks who've experienced that kind of loss. But it's also a mirror that there are many things that are shameful about this country's past. But there is an opportunity. I think a great nation would say, this is who we've been and this is who we were, but look how far we've come and look how we're working to push this country further. And so I hope that maybe it's a little shaming, maybe it's a little fact-finding, because again, I'd be one to bet that most Americans don't know the true history about gun violence through a racial lens, but also the truth about how black people have existed and what it's taken for white society to keep us in position.
Yep. Most of us don't know that story, hence this conversation, more to the point, hence the text from Trymaine Lee. It's called 1,000 Ways to Die, The True Cost of Violence on Black Life in America. I have, again, been thrilled to have had him on this program to talk about this text in this hour. And again, finally, his new documentary series is called A Hope in High Water, A People's Recovery, 20 years after Hurricane Katrina, streaming right now on Peacock. Trymaine, as always, man, you're doing some amazing work. I celebrate your work and your witness, and thank you once again, sir, for this hour of conversation.
My brother, it's been an honor. Thank you.
Thank you. Just like that, 3 hours gone, back here tomorrow, Lord willing, to do it all over again. Until tomorrow, thanks for tuning in to Tavis Smiley, and as always, keep the faith.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. Thousands protested in downtown Chicago Saturday against President Trump's threat to deploy federal troops.
Every single immigrant